Max had always been a loyal companion to his family. His thick golden fur and gentle, kind eyes had been a constant source of comfort and joy. He had been there through the good times and bad, always by their side, a faithful friend in moments of happiness and a silent support during times of sorrow. From the day he was adopted as a scrappy little pup from the shelter, Max had given all his love to the family. But now, after years of companionship, his body was starting to show signs of age, and the family had learned that Max was facing a terminal illness. His once energetic spirit had begun to wane, and his playful demeanor was replaced by an overwhelming exhaustion. Yet, even with his declining health, Max had one final wish. It all began a few weeks ago when the vet confirmed that Max was suffering from an aggressive form of cancer. The disease had spread throughout his body, leaving him with little chance of survival. The vet gently explained that Max had only a few months left, and the family should prepare themselves for the inevitable. Max's owner, Sarah, had been devastated by the news. She couldn't imagine life without him. He had been her constant companion for so many years. As the days passed, Max's condition worsened. He had stopped eating, his once glorious coat had lost its shine, and he spent most of his time lying on the floor, his eyes full of a sorrow that seemed beyond his years. Sarah knew that Max was hanging on, and it broke her heart to watch him slowly fade away. Yet she also knew that no matter how much she wanted to keep him with her forever, the time had come to let him go. The hardest part for Sarah was seeing the confusion in Max's eyes. He had always been so full of life, but now he seemed lost in a world that no longer made sense to him. She wanted to make his last days as comfortable as possible, but a deep sadness lingered in her heart. Was there something more she could do for him? Was there a way to honor his loyalty, his devotion, and the deep love they shared? One evening, as Max lay resting by the fireplace, Sarah had a thought that would change everything. She decided to take him back to the vet. Dr. Matthews had been Max's doctor since he was a puppy, and the two had formed a strong bond over the years. Dr. Matthews was more than just a veterinarian to Max. He was a trusted friend, someone who had always been there for both Max and Sarah. Sarah knew that Dr. Matthews had always cared for Max as if he were his own pet, and she felt that he would understand just how much Max meant to her and her family. When Sarah called the clinic, Dr. Matthews immediately agreed to see Max. He could hear the sadness in Sarah's voice, and he knew that time was running out for her beloved dog. When they arrived at the clinic, Max's once bright eyes were dull, and his body was weaker than ever. Sarah gently led him to the exam room, her heart heavy with the knowledge that this could be the last time Max would walk through the clinic doors. Dr. Matthews greeted them with a warm smile, though his eyes reflected the same sorrow that Sarah felt. He knelt beside Max, running his fingers through his soft fur as he spoke gently to the dog. "Hey Max," Dr. Matthews said softly, "it's good to see you, buddy. How are you doing?" Max lifted his head slightly, his tail giving a faint wag as if he recognized the familiar voice. Dr. Matthews's face softened as he examined the dog, his hands checking for signs of discomfort or pain. Sarah stood quietly nearby, her eyes brimming with tears. "I know it's hard to see him like this," Dr. Matthews said, looking up at Sarah. "But he's still here, and that says something about how much love and care you've given him over the years. He's a fighter." Sarah nodded, wiping away a tear. "I just wish I could do more for him," she whispered. "I want to make his last days count. I want him to know how much he's loved." Dr. Matthews paused for a moment, looking at Max, who was now lying down peacefully, his eyes half closed. He then glanced at Sarah, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "You know," he began, "sometimes animals have a way of letting us know what they want, even when they can't speak. I've seen it before with pets who are nearing the end of their lives. They often have one last wish or desire, something they need to experience before they go." Sarah looked at Dr. Matthews, surprised. "What do you mean? You think Max has a final wish?" Dr. Matthews smiled softly. "It's possible. It's not uncommon for a pet to have a final desire before they pass. It might be something as simple as lying in their favorite spot, hearing their favorite voice, or even something more specific. The bond between you and Max is so strong that he may have a special request. Something that will bring him peace." Sarah sat down beside Max, her heart racing with hope. Could there really be something she could do for him? Was there a way to make his final days more meaningful, to fulfill a wish he couldn't ask for? She knew that whatever Max's final wish was, she would do everything she could to make it happen. Dr. Matthews stood up and walked over to his desk, writing something down. He then handed Sarah a small sheet of paper with a phone number written on it. "If you want to make his last days truly special, I have a suggestion," Dr. Matthews said. "There's a service called Pet Hospice, and they specialize in fulfilling final wishes for pets. They've done some amazing work for animals who are nearing the end of their lives. It's worth looking into. If you think Max has something specific he wants, they can help make it happen. Sarah took the paper, her hands trembling. "Thank you, Dr. Matthews," she said softly. "I'll look into it." Max seemed to sense that something had changed. He lifted his head, gazing up at Sarah with those soulful eyes, and she knew that he trusted her. He had been by her side for so many years, offering his unconditional love and loyalty. Now it was her turn to give him something in return. That evening, after leaving the clinic, Sarah called the number on the paper. The voice on the other end was warm and compassionate, and she quickly explained Max's condition. The person on the line listened carefully and asked Sarah questions about Max's favorite activities, places, and things. They even asked if there were any specific people Max would like to see. Sarah felt a sense of peace knowing that someone cared enough to help her fulfill Max's final wish. The next day, the pet hospice service arrived at Sarah's house, bringing with them a sense of calm and care. They set up a comfortable area for Max in the living room, where he could rest peacefully. But then they did something truly special. They brought Max's favorite toy, a squeaky ball he had carried around for years. They also arranged for a visit from an old friend, a neighbor who had always been kind to Max. The hospice team even helped Sarah set up a quiet space in the backyard, where Max had once loved to run and play. Max spent the day surrounded by his family and the people he loved, enjoying his favorite treats and basking in the warmth of his home. There was no rush, no urgency. It was simply a peaceful, love-filled day that allowed Max to say goodbye in his own way. That evening, as the sun began to set, Max lay peacefully in his favorite spot, surrounded by those who loved him. Sarah stroked his fur gently, her heart full of gratitude for the life they had shared. As Max took his final breath, he was at peace, knowing that his last wish had been granted. He had been surrounded by love, comfort, and the people who meant the most to him. And for Sarah, the knowledge that she had given Max everything he needed in his final days brought a sense of closure and peace that would stay with her forever. Max had left this world, but the bond he had shared with Sarah and her family would live on in their hearts forever. And though it was difficult to say goodbye, Sarah knew that she had done everything she could to ensure that Max's final days had been filled with the love and care he had always given her. Max's final wish had been simple, but it had been everything he needed, just like the love he had given so freely throughout his life.